You're listening to Confessions of a Counselor podcast. Here we will talk all things mental wellness.
Hi everyone, it's Janice here, and welcome to the last episode of Season 3 of Confessions of a Counselor. So I thought we would end this season off talking about the two options that we have. Obviously, this is a very simplified version of the options that we have, but when we talk about change, realistically, there are two different options that we can choose when deciding to create change. So we can either choose to change and do the work to make that change happen, or you can choose to stay miserable. You can choose to not change, to stay in whatever process, whatever experience you're having and not change. Those are our two options. And there's many different avenues in those two options, but that's the choice that we're making. And that hopefully by coming to therapy, we're choosing the option to create change. When I first heard this quote, it really stuck with me as something to consider, right? Especially as I see clients come and go from the office, some walking away with lives that are completely different than the lives that they walked in with, and others walking away kind of stuck in the same place that they were when they came into therapy. And knowing that the work that we do is so important, and that building a relationship with clients really does promote change, and a client's ability to understand and integrate learning and the process of therapy. But really seeing this difference in the clients who jump in, right? Like they're just 2 feet in the deep end, like ready to do whatever radical, maybe a little bit unorthodox challenge that I have for them, versus the clients who are maybe a little bit more hesitant, who feel less comfortable rumbling their story, who are out of their window most of the time, who are very stuck in their black and white thinking, right? So there's just a difference. And so proposing this idea to my clients of, here are your two options, right? We can create change. So we can do this work together. We can find something that's going to work for you. We can begin to understand what's going on for you and really break it down so that you can do something different, or you can stay the same. And most likely that will lead to feeling quite miserable, not feeling satisfied, not seeing change happen. And so when these two options are presented, I often see a spark within clients of like, well, obviously I don't want to stay miserable. And so asking ourselves that question when we're confronted with black and white thinking, when we're confronted with resistance, when therapy feels like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Why did I even start this? Like, I'd like to just go back to not understanding and live in that naive world. Asking ourselves this question of, do I want to change or do I want to stay miserable? And most of the time, we're obviously going to choose the option of change because staying miserable sounds awful. It sounds awful. But it's also okay in some cases to say, you know what? This part, this piece, I'm going to stay miserable in it. Right? Like, it's not worth the change, or maybe the change is not so accessible, and we can recognize this is a part of my life that feels miserable, and I will work around that misery, right? So sometimes recognizing that I'm choosing to stay miserable in this actually gives us the power to be able to create lemonade out of that lemon, right? So most of the time, again, we're going to want to create that change, but it's also recognizing that sometimes it's the path of least resistance to recognize that that is a miserable part of our lives and to work around it. And so both options are okay, right? Like, it is okay to say, yes, I'm going to create change. And it is also okay to say, yep, I recognize that I am staying miserable in this, and that is okay too. So the next time you're confronted with a challenge, I wonder what it would look like to ask yourself, would I like to change, or would I like to stay miserable in this?
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Confessions of a Counselor podcast is available anywhere you like to listen to your podcast, both on Apple and Android. New episodes will be released every Friday. If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to join the conversation. Leave a review or subscribe to the podcast hosted on the Anchor app. All these details can be found at janicelyons.com. Until next time, take care.